that it was long, but then he accepted that it wasn't. Very cheeky. Again, has the point, he gets the serve. And in normal circumstances you would say, well, that might well be enough, but Korea hasn't really served well enough in this match to give you that sort of confidence. Good, strong, accurate forehand from Korea. Now he's in a small trouble here. Set down, 4-2 down in the second set tie break. Obviously has him on the hook now. Is wriggling. Question is, can they get off the hook? It's looking increasingly unlikely. But perhaps he can. Able to illustrate the flaws in the Korea volleying technique. Not that it was easy, he was at full stretch and needed a rapid change of direction. Was more than a little unfortunate. The net cord really turned a winner for Perez into a winner for Korea. Just a couple of points away now. It's a crucial serve for Uruguay. Good, deep first serve. That's all Korea needs to do, is to hold the next two serve points and into the next round. Again, under normal circumstances, put your hands on it. Watching your mother in the royalties. So he must have been serving that crisply today. All wrong from Korea. He looked at the court rather accusingly as if he got a bad bounce or kick.
Distinguished group here.
You are?
Okay.
This is a very distinguished group. Let's all look together. Has it got a zoom lens? If it hasn't, I don't want my photograph taken. What do you want me to say? How delightful it is to see you again. Oh yeah, I'll say yes, rhubarb, and rhubarb, and can only think of technical things. Anything else is not quite in order. I don't like to make exquisite comments on the colour of your eyes or the texture of your lips or something like that. I know it is, isn't it? Well, I know that's why everybody's using the sense of ability to speak. That plus...
and you can't analyze who is sitting at the high table, so you permit that I will introduce the persons who are sitting here. On my right is Mrs. Zakla. Then we have Professor Koshari, President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. We have Mrs. Uzi, Professor Paul Teteni, the Secretary of the International Council on Dialysis, Mrs. Bloch, then Professor Sabo, the Nestor of our dialysis community, and I think the only person who has attended the first Congress in Philadelphia 36 years ago. Then we have Frank Stone. We have Frank Stone, the Treasurer of the International Council, and Professor Michel Shea, President of the European Federation of Dialysis Societies. Now on my right, we have Mrs. Teteni, Professor Uzi, Chairman of the Organizing Committee of this program. So that she has a birthday. This is the largest birthday party she ever had. Then we have Professor Wolfgang Lappler, President-elect of the International Council of Dialysis. Then we have asking the President of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences to say a few words to our Congress. President.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to greet you on the occasion of the 10th International Congress of Catalysis on behalf of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. I have the impression of being in the midst of a great family. Young generation are succeeding the older ones, and ex-students are sitting together with the ex-professors. It's a very nice view, covering different parts of the world, and full of the promise of a better understanding and cooperation between different worlds and different cultures. If you look around in this country, which is a peaceful country, it's a stabilized, the academic organizations working and functioning in spite of the profound political and economic changes which are happening in this part of Europe. We are for the moment a happy island in a zone of this continent where tragic events are taking place. We are intending to stay a stable country, peaceful and normally functioning country, including our academic life, which is free of internal strife. And even if we have debates, the debates are always scientific, not political and not personal. This important meeting with so many hundreds of participants is also a sign of the effort of this country to re-establish the contact with the international scientific world and to return after so many years of separation to the international world and to its genuine tradition. The slogan of this Congress, the new frontiers of catalysis, probably we will have some more promises in the future. And I think that the title of the book of Venerable Bush, the Science, the Endless Frontier, will become true also as far as chemistry and catalysis are concerned. I am a historian, but we in the academy we very broad, we pay very close attention to the functioning of all other branches of sciences, and we are very proud of our good specialists in the field of chemistry as well. We have very good schools, very good people in Hungary. This is a small country, but this is our only source, the human resource, the human brain. It's the only source we can hope some help in rebuilding our country. The founder of our academy, Count István Széchenyi, the early 19th century liberal reformer, once said that the most important thing in nation's life is the cultivated man, the brain, the cultivated head. And I think it is our program, we still value this program. As I told you, I am a historian, but I feel that sometimes historians should not be all in the hands of the specialists of chemistry. Our everyday life shows this fact. In the long run, however, we will be all in the hands of the historians. Historians who will write about this period and the history of chemistry as well. However, I think that the catalyst will come out of this ordeal with very good points. Not only because this is one of the branches of sciences which had fantastic revolutionary advances since the last 70 or so years, which helped our task and plays going faster to make our everyday life easier. But not only this is the reason. One of the reasons of these good points the catalysts will have in the future. They have always also invented new methods and tools and means of facing those troubles and dangers which are inevitably coming out of some results of the scientific research. I think of the methods which are helping our environment to prevent getting worse. I think of the methods which are helping humanity to live in the future in a better environment and have a happier life. So don't lose hope that you will have good points in the books of the future historians. I think that with this idea, I thank you for this important meeting and for the opportunity to say some words to you. Thank you.
Now I will ask Professor Sabo to say a few words about the old times of the palaces.
Ladies and gentlemen, to say a few words here and now, I cannot retain myself not to remember the first Congress on catalysis in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 36 years ago. And one name comes to my mind, Heinz Heinemann, one of the initiators that gathering, and the continuous motor of all the congresses further on. We badly sorry that Heinz cannot be here to participate at our convention. The series has been a very healthy one, which has produced congresses on catalysis in every 4 years, with always increasing participation and arriving at the 10th one here now. Each convention have enormously advanced the idea of the catalysis in theory and in practice. The stimulation of these congresses has initiated local associations of people engaged in catalysis. For instance, here in Hungary, our catalysis club has been established already in 1958, 2 years later at the Philadelphia Conference. This was the first workshop of the Academy of Sciences. Today there are several hundred of such. The club edited the bank to look contact catalysis first in Hungarian and shortly improved and enlarged in 2 volumes in English, gaining very good referees from all over the world. I hope and suppose all you have spent a useful time here in Budapest, and a number of new scientific and friendly connections has been created. Thank you.
International then took that thought to the executive committee of the Philadelphia Catalysis Club, which said this was a good idea and appointed a committee of which I was a member to try to organize an international congress. Of course, the most difficult thing about organizing it was to raise some money which would enable people from Europe and other parts of the world to attend the congress. And it took us about 2.5 years to get the organization together and to raise the money and to have the first International Congress of Catalysis in Philadelphia in 1956. A large number of people were involved in the organization of the Congress, and it was a very successful meeting. About 600 people attended, and it was also the start of an organization called the International Congress of Catalysis Incorporated, which we had to start in order to get tax-free status and be able to handle the money that we raised for the Congress. Well, that organization persisted through the third Congress, and only at the third Congress in Moscow was the truly international organization established with the council that is now established and has been responsible for the congresses ever since the third Congress. The first Congress, of course, had problems in getting enough interest worldwide, but overall it seemed to be a time when people were ready and willing and anxious to learn more about what others were doing. And we found that once the organization got underway, that we could interest many people from abroad, and also some of the most prominent people in the field who were the honorary chairman of the first Congress, such as Sir Eric Ideal, Sir Hugh Taylor, and Eugene Woodley, all of whom attended and all of whom gave talks at the first, plenary talks at the first Congress. Well, it's a long story, and I don't think I ought to repeat it here, but some of it has been described in the fourth volume of the Calgary Congress proceedings.
Well, this is, ladies and gentlemen, one of the miracles of the modern technique, that we are able to have the interview with Einstein, although he was unfortunately unable to be here in person. But I think that congresses of that kind have many different functions to fulfill. One, and perhaps one of the important ones, is the creating a forum for discussions between people. Science is unthinkable without discussions. And I may recall the famous letter of Simone written to Countess d'Albany, the famous personality of Napoleon's Empire, after a visit to the French Academy of Sciences. La conversation entre les gens d'esprit est beaucoup plus logique que le livre d'aucun d'eux, parce qu'ils sont forcés de produire ce qu'ils savent plutôt que ce qu'ils veulent montrer. And this is a very good observation, that in discussions you can really get ideas, you can really check people's ideas, and the development of science is unthinkable, as I said, without discussion. But there is another function, equally important, and this is communication between people of different continents. And this reminds me of a story, which is a true story. The meeting of the academic senate of one of the oldest European universities, where a discussion started which discipline is the oldest. And the dean of the Faculty of Medicine stood up and said, medicine is obviously the oldest because it is written in the Bible that God, when he was creating Eve, he took out the rib of Adam, and to do that he had to have the help of a surgeon. So medicine is the oldest. In this moment, said the dean of the Faculty of Chemistry stood up and said, no, gentlemen, you are the dean of faculty is not right, because it is written in the Bible that when God created Adam, he formed him from clay, and then he had to fire him, and by all the chemical processes. So chemistry is the oldest discipline. At that moment, the head of the Department of Political Sciences stood up and said, no, gentlemen, political sciences are the oldest, because it is written in the Bible that at first it was chaos, and to have chaos, God needed the help of politicians. I think that one of the important obligations of our scientific community is to facilitate the communication between people. We are one great family of scientists. Science has relieved humanity of the fear of nature. I think that the great goal of science in the future is to relieve us from the fear of ourselves. And this can be done only by direct human interactions. And therefore I think that this is our obligation, and congresses of that kind serve this purpose in an excellent way. Of course, to have a congress like that, you need a hard work of many people. In this case, we had a very efficient organizing committee, and I think that our thanks should go to Professor Laszlo Buzi, chairman of the organizing committee, who so marvelously organized the conditions for our discussions and created the atmosphere which was at the same time serious and relaxed. And this is what is important for scientific discussions. So let us thank Professor Buzi. Of course, a job of that size, to organize a congress for 1,000 people, can't be done by one person. Professor Buzi was helped by many tens of his collaborators in the organizing committee. I can't mention all the names, but I would like particularly to mention Mrs. Rose Lewins, Dr. Galia Harley, Dr. Thomas Hotter, Dr. Antal Sarkhan, and Mrs. Mary Rosta, a young designer who has designed this beautiful symbol of our 10th International Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, I will ask you to rise the toast to our host. Ladies and gentlemen, I have also a few announcements to make. The International Council has decided that the venue of the next International Congress of Catalysis, the 11th Congress, will be Baltimore in the United States. So we should keep all your Baltimore. We have also elected new officers of the Council. The office of the President is taken from my hands tomorrow afternoon by Professor from Evanston, United States. The President-elect, who will take over the presidency in 4 years in Baltimore, is Professor Johann Bloch from Swiss Harvard Institute in Berlin. The Vice President of the Council is Professor Michel Shea from the University of Germany. The Treasurer, who is looking so well after our money, is Professor Frank Stone. And the Secretary of the Council is Professor Alex Bell from Baltimore. I would like now to ask Professor Zachler, as the President, to come tomorrow afternoon to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen with the lab jackets, and friends, colleagues, we just heard Heinz Heinemann telling us how it all started in 1956. It was intended as per Congress, an International Congress of Catalysis, but it was such a success that they then decided to continue every 4 years, and so in a retroactive manner, that Congress was called the first Congress. I'm not quite sure that they fully understood the consequences of that decision. First, 1956 was a leap year, a year where February has 29 days. And by having the International Conference of Catalysis every 4 years, it means we will always have the International Congress in a leap year. Secondly, it was a year when the Olympic Games were taking place. And since they have the same periodicity of 4 years, we will always have the International Congress of Catalysis, not only in the same year, but actually in the same month as the Olympic Games. And thirdly, it was in July, the heat of the election campaign in the United States. And since the president is chosen every 4 years, we will always have this coincidence that the International Congress takes place in the heat of the election campaign in the US. Now, if 4 events have the same turnover frequency and the same periodicity, most people in catalysis are looking for some causal relationship. I couldn't resist that temptation. Well, the election in every democratic country is an occasion of collective introspection. What have we achieved in the last 4 years? What are we hoping to achieve the next 4 years? Will we continue in the same direction or will we change directions? Well, Monday in this room, Jules Marot gave a talk on just that subject. Past, present, and future on catalysis. He started with the same introspection. What have we achieved? Where are we? And where should we go? And he used the metaphor of the tunnel system, and he fortunately sees the light at the end of the tunnel, and he sees the light getting closer. Perhaps this general attitude of psychological collective introspection is a good background for doing the same thing in Catholicism. Now, the Olympic Games have a somewhat older tradition. They didn't start in '56, but they started 2,500 years ago. But they were re-modernized by Pierre around the turn of the century. And the main goal was the peaceful competition of young athletes come together and forget any feuds and do their sport playing together and become friends. Well, the competition element is certainly present in a Catholicism conference. Let's not fool ourselves. My Catholicism is better than your Catholicism. You hear that often. My paper was actually preceding your paper, and that idea is first my idea, and then it became published by somebody else. This element is certainly there, and I think it's a healthy element of competing and comparing and seeing how ideas, conclusions are accepted by the community. But there is a very important difference between this kind of competition and the Olympic Games. The difference is here there is no stopwatch and there is no jury who says he is the winner and he is the loser. But here everybody has to decide for himself what is the right theory and what is perhaps not the right theory. And each of you can decide for yourself in Platinum KL, do you believe in Tarek or do you believe in Henry? And if you are interested in Platinum or cover on Platinum, do you adhere to Wayne or do you adhere to Vladimir? And that is, I as a president will certainly not give you an opinion on that. You have to make up your own mind on that. And that is the advantage of science compared to other types of competition. It has to do with what Albert Schweitzer said, that the marvelous thing about science is it's the only group in the world where truth and reality is identical. And so we have some objective norms, we think. Another important difference with the Olympic Games, of course, is fortunately here there are no national anthems. We are here not as representatives of a nation, but we are here as individuals, as colleagues, as friends, as scientists, and in always a peaceful and always an interactive way with all the upheavals which took place in the world. We just see that the family links are getting closer. Now, what about the leap year? I hope our historical friend will correct me if I say something wrong. I think it was introduced by Julius Caesar. For good reasons. Later, of course, the Pope Gregor improved the calendar. The world was totally in disarray with the old calendar when, well, you know, of course, the reason, the rotation of the Earth has one frequency and the revolution of the Earth around the Sun has another one, and the two numbers are not just multiples with an integral factor, so things getting worse and in disarray, and farmers found in their books that they should seed in the middle of the summer and harvest in the middle of the winter, which is of course nonsense. So Caesar tried to bring order into this disarray by introducing the leap year. Well, if you remember Jersey's talk here when opening the conference, and it was alluded to again, our world is in danger of getting in disarray. Perhaps mankind learned a little late that this planet has a finite surface area, and its degree of coverage, theta, is getting very high. And the volume of our atmosphere is finite. And the volume of our rivers and lakes and even of the oceans is not infinite. And we must really avoid catastrophes by making sure that the waste of one process the waste product will be reprocessed and not poison the atmosphere, poison the water, poison the environment. And fortunately, this is one of the big new challenges of catalysis. And as I said at the beginning, everybody knows that it is fine to know that we not only do love for love and like and enjoy our scientific activities, but that we see that is a real need for mankind for the work we are doing. So about these correlations, tomorrow is our last day, and then we will part from this beautiful city, which many of us have seen for the first time, and all the friendly people we have met, and all the marvelous organization. I can only reiterate what has been said before by Laszlo and his co-workers. It will be difficult for the next committee in Baltimore to follow the standards and keep up the standards which have been set here, but I'm sure my American colleagues will do their best in that. We will go back to our lands, partir, c'est mourir, on peut, always a bit brisk to leave. We have come here to meet old friends, and most of us have done so and made many new friends. This family relationship, which always was so characteristic for the catalytic community, has been reinforced, and therefore it is a little sad to pass, but it's just for a finite time. We will go to our labs, and I hope we will see each other in good health, with good new results, with new conclusions, and hopefully with a few controversies 4 years from now, in the last week of June, in Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the American colleagues here among us, and on behalf of them, I would like to ask Professor Gary Hallal to say a few words about the future Congress in Baltimore. Gary, may I ask you to come here?
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin by telling you a little story. Laszlo tried to get an after-dinner humorous after-dinner speaker. He called me a few months ago and suggested I might live around in the U.S. He even hinted I might do it. I know exactly what he had in mind. Those of you who were in Palm Beach in 1972 heard Bert Farkas, and that was a memorable occasion. He I think, taught us that we shouldn't take ourselves and our science too seriously. I can't remember much more about it. I do remember that he pointed out that we really ought to have time limits on certain things that we talk about. They are mechanisms or concepts or reactions. And he singled out, as I recall, H2, V2 exchange, orbital pair of hydrogen, and the Banquet mechanism, and he suggested that those ought to be things that had their day and we ought to move on. So it occurs to me we probably ought to be setting some limits for Baltimore. One that comes to mind, I think we ought to give the electronic factor of thousands about 4 more years. And then in Baltimore, I thought we probably ought to have a session where we could get a unified view of that. Unfortunately, I've been able to get Wayne Goodman and Vladimir Proponent to co-chair that, so we'll bring that to a close in Baltimore. Anyway, I did say that I would at least try to tell one joke, since Laszlo was rather persistent. And the only kind of jokes that I can think about in the American sense are those that have to do with lawyers. You know what well, at least the Americans know what I mean. The lawyer is always somebody who is the person that you're trying to offend. You're supposed to start with some good disclaimer when you're going to make fun of some religious or ethnic or professional group by saying some of my best friends. I thought about it, but I can't think of any friend best, otherwise he's a lawyer, so I don't have to say that. Those jokes, they're always the kind where there's a decision or you're trying to decide between two entities, like the inspector trying to decide whether the mangled mass on the road is a snake or lawyer, and he keeps going back and forth with the evidence, and finally his assistant pulls on his elbow and says, well, it's very clear it has to have been a lawyer because there's no skid mark. They're that kind of joke. That's not the joke. So, since many of you won't really know what I'm talking about, I tried to go around and find out what you all call lawyers and see what esteem you held them in. It's clear that the rest of the world thinks a lot better of lawyers than we do. But anyway, the names that I came up with, solicitor and barrister, I guess both Great Britain and Australia use that. I'm going to mangle all of these names, but since only a fraction of you will know that, we'll probably be all right. And it's only those your countrymen. Udvid, I guess, in Hungary, avocado, Spain, avocado, and avocat. That's supposed to be Spanish, Italian, and French, but with my pronunciation, they'll all come out about the same. Slavic in Hindi, Bengal-shi in Japan, and Juris in Russian, and Jushi in Chinese. Those are the people I'm talking about, and now here's the joke. It's my favorite lawyer joke. And it has to do with a new ruling of the Federal Food and Drug Administration. They are the ones that worry about the purity of our foods and drugs and the testing of those. And they also stipulate how those tests ought to be carried out. This joke has to do with their new ruling on toxicological tests, which are normally done with rats. And the new ruling is you can no longer use rats. You've got to use lawyers. And they have three reasons why you're going to have to use lawyers. The first one is that there's a lot more of them. And the second reason is you're much less likely to get attached to your specimen. And the final reason is that there's some things rats won't do. I don't know why we have that feeling about lawyers, but it is pretty uniform across the U.S. and is particularly right at Yale, because we tend to produce so many, a real statistic. We produce about 100 graduates each year in all the sciences and physical sciences, but we produce about 150 lawyers. I don't think we're too atypical. I should just tell you one other true anecdote. Our president, who just resigned, was a lawyer. I told him that joke some time ago. He didn't laugh. And then for the next few years, every time I was at a party and I thought he was within earshot, I would repeat the joke. He resigned in June, and for a short time I thought he'd resign so he wouldn't have to hear this joke. But knowing what he thought about engineering, I realized he never listened to me, so that wasn't the reason. Let me get on to Baltimore. What I'd like to do first is, could we show a short video of Baltimore? And then I'll tell you a little bit about our expectations.
Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, the site of the first international conference. There's something about the atmosphere in Baltimore. Part genteel southern, part energetic northern. Baltimore is a seaport, located at the head of the Chesapeake Bay. This means that all the opportunities for water-based recreation and for sources of seafood from the table are readily available. The North American Ecological Society has chosen to propose Baltimore as an ideal site for our 11th International Conference. We start with Baltimore's gleaming New Inner Harbor, the center of activity in Baltimore, and the home of our conference headquarters. It is full of activity. At one end of the harbor is the National Aquarium, home of hundreds of species, including the exotic birds of the tropical forest. At the other end of the harbor is the Maryland Science Center, where hundreds of displays and a new IMAX theater can stir the imagination. The Inner Harbor is also a center for shopping, from small boutiques to elegant department stores to discount specialty stores and shops. However, our conference in Baltimore will not be expensive for the participants. Proposed conference dates will occur at a period of time when hotel rooms are the lowest during the year in Baltimore. That is during our 4th of July celebration of independence. For those of us on limited budget, rooms will be available at local colleges. As an example, this last year the rates were much less than $100 per night for the best hotels and less than $25 a night for university accommodations. You can tour the United States Navy's oldest commissioned ship, the Constitution, or a recent vintage submarine, all on the Inner Harbor. Or possibly, just take in the relaxed atmosphere surrounding the Inner Harbor. Baltimore is both a small city and a large town with local hospitality, extensive entertainment, and international culture. Whether foreign or domestic, visitors readily adapt to the relaxed atmosphere in Baltimore.
Et moi, qui suis français, je vais vous dire qu'on y trouve le plus belle vie du monde. Baltimore è bellissima.
There are many historic places in Baltimore. There is the B&O Railroad Museum, where a horse once raced the locomotive Tom Thumb. The horse won. Overlooking the harbor is Fort McHenry, where Francis Scott Key peered through dawn's early light to see that the American flag was still there. There is Pimlico Racecourse, the home of the Preakness and the Maryland Millions. For connoisseurs of art, the museums of Baltimore are superb. The Baltimore Museum is the home of the renowned Cone collection of predominantly Impressionist art, and the Walters Art Gallery is the home of an extensive collection of Oriental art, both paintings and sculpture. The Baltimore Symphony Orchestra performs both classical masterpieces and developing classics. Baltimore's local seafood is unique and is based in the seaport from the fish and the shellfish from the inexhaustible Chesapeake Bay, particularly the blue crab. There are steamed crabs, soft-shell crabs, crab cakes, crab imperial, crab fluff, crab fritters, crab sandwiches. The list is infinite and the taste of each is superb. When it comes to eating, there is an inexhaustible number of fine restaurants. These reflect the multinational makeup of Baltimore, from Asian to German, to Italian, to Greek, to Spanish, and French. You can attend a Major League Baseball game or a classical concert or an opera. The Morris Mechanic Theater previews and reviews the soon-to-be Broadway productions. Baltimore has an historic place in fundamental research in catalysis. Numerous U.S. and international researchers in catalysis have been trained in Baltimore under the guidance of Professors Paul Levitt and Dick Hocus at the renowned Johns Hopkins University. The catalytic research of numerous U.S. and multinational corporations are based in the United States within a short drive of Baltimore. Baltimore's unique geographical location would mean considerable local corporate as well as university support for our conference. Baltimore is easily and inexpensively accessible by air from any foreign country. There are 3 international airports serving Baltimore and Washington, D.C. within short public limousine service to our conference site on Baltimore's new Inner Harbor. Further, the New York airports are only a few hours away by train or by bus. We hope that you have some feeling for the hospitable atmosphere and cultural opportunities in this brief tour of Baltimore. This historic city will welcome our conference with open arms. The North American Catalysis Society proposes to hold the 11th International Congress on Catalysis during the week of the 1st through the 5th of July in 1996. Our Congress will be conducted during the celebration of the 220th anniversary
of the Declaration of the United States Independence. This celebration on the 4th of July coincides with our conference banquet on Thursday. This provides a unique experience as the 11th International Conference and the 220th celebration of American independence are brought together in Baltimore, an historic center of American history. As a result of the concurrent celebrations, Baltimore will be in the most festive atmosphere, and our conference will be able to benefit and take part in the celebration, culminating with a massive harvest at the time of our banquet on Thursday.
I think it came out all right, but when Kurt first gave me the text, I was a little upset. He had backed everything up. He had us the 120th anniversary of the United States and the 9th International Congress, but in the end, it all got more or less straightened out. We had our first organizational meeting this afternoon, so I wanted to just warn you a little bit about some of the new rules we think that will apply. Those of you who've been following the history of the Council know that up until Calgary, the first 32 years, officially one could either have French or English, but in Calgary we finally made it English. And so we discussed that today, and we didn't know whether we should make it American or... But what we finally decided on is, as you all know, the only international language, broken English, and so that's what we're doing. In that regard, I have to remind our current president, and that is the official language. He has this way of lapsing into French, and then assuming we're all educated enough, we know what he's talking about, and that's just not the case. And I must also forewarn our upcoming president. He has a way of introducing or welcoming us in about 7 languages, also thinking we understand all those, but that's not, none of that's going to be allowed in Baltimore. It's going to be broken all the way. The next rule has to do with slides. It turned out that 2 of my organizing committee members didn't read the fine print, didn't come with slides, and so we discussed that problem. And it's decided that all oral papers will actually slides are not going to be allowed. We're only going to provide a small blackboard and colored chalk. There's this continuing problem of posters versus papers. Everybody, of course, wants theirs to be oral paper. And we think we have a solution on that, too. In the case of oral papers, we're only going to publish the abstract. But if you get a poster, you can have 20 pages. You get your own room to present it. We're only going to accept 10 of them. We thought probably there ought to be some new sessions. We had the same format over and over again. As co-editor of the journal, I had come up with 2 suggestions of my own. Several of you have approached me about papers that were rejected and had certain comments about that. So one of the sessions we're going to have is that the requirement to get in this session will be your paper has to have been rejected by at least 1 journal that publishes on catalysis, and then you can be in this session. But we're going to counter that by having another session where only editors can make presentations. I understand this is going to be all right now because we're only going to publish just the abstract, so that it won't matter that there's not quite archived literature. But in the case of the editors, what I think we're going to do is we're going to read from the letter